Hello.
Hey guys,
I'm Jeffrey.
and I am Jerry,
Together, we like to be called
the MLW Brothers.
Today, we are back again at you, and quickly, we just want to dive into what we have for you today. I want to share with you guys some 3 tricks and 3 ways, right, that will help you to communicate with your partner.
Yeah, we know you've been communicating with your partner almost every day, but we just want you to know and highlight some key things that when you add to your communication skills can really be helpful.
Yeah, so let's just dive into it. And so before we get to the points we have for you today, we want to explain what communication really is, right? And communication is a way to get an intended ideal to another person.
Yeah, I heard somewhere that if you want to know that your communication was successful, the receiver should be able to understand and explain it perfectly to another person to understand as well.
And not just to another person, to a very little young person.
Indeed.
And so communication is very vital when it comes to relationship, right? Because you always want your partner to understand what you mean.
I don't know any relationship that communication is not important. I mean, without communication, I don't think there will really be any successful relationship, be it marriage, be it family-wise, whichever relationship. It really is important that communication is more like the breadth and length of the relationship.
Yeah, because we realize almost all the time that in most of our points, one of the answers that always goes with any problem that we had to share was that communication was paramount. And so we decided, why don't we just explain to you guys how we feel that communication should be done with your partner.
Right.
And so from that, we realized that the first point to us is to pay attention.
Paying attention is really important. We realize that in paying attention to your partner, as far as communication is concerned, you realize you don't really want to talk more. You just want to be a very good listener. You have to be attentive and make sure that you are really listening to your partner.
And so we say that the first step to communication is not really to speak, but to stay silent and listen. The idea is to really understand what your partner is trying to convey to you. So anytime you engage in any form of conversation with your partner, genuinely want to understand what your partner means. What is my partner trying to deliver onto me right now? Until you understand what your partner is trying to tell you, stay mute till you get the point. And if you don't get it, say, can you repeat that? Or you can say, are you trying to say this? So that you are sure that that is exactly what your partner is trying to say to you.
In having this communication, you want to really know that listening is very important. Sometimes you really have a good number of things to say, but until you say this thing, make sure that you understand what your partner is coming from, because sometimes you realize that you said a lot of things before. After understanding what your partner meant, you realize that, you could have handled the situation better, or you could have probably been talking about another thing altogether. And so listening is very important in communication.
And I feel like one mistake people go about in communicating with their partners is that they form new ideas in their minds even when their partner is speaking. When your partner is trying to tell them something, they are trying to think of a reply, think of a new point, think of a new idea to say back onto them, and not really pay attention to what they are saying. So we are trying to say that the first point, and very important, is that anytime you engage in your in a communication with your partner, stay quiet until you are very sure that this is exactly what your partner is trying to say to you before you reply.
Now, in paying attention, sometimes there are some body languages that even communicate more than the words that you speak. In paying attention, the first things that you do in the morning when you wake up, sometimes others are really the body type. They will give you a peg. Others will also go straight to text on their phone to call someone else, or probably talk to their mother. Whatever you do, whether you are talking or you are not talking, you have to pay attention and know that you are really communicating and giving some signals to your partner, which you really should check out.
Yeah, I think I learned somewhere that anytime you are engaging with someone, if you really want to understand what they are trying to say, or you are trying to understand such an individual in general, listen or watch them with the sound off. What that means is, anytime you are engaging with people, Imagine that you are watching them with no sound. Pay attention to their actions, pay attention to the way they act, the way they move, the way they handle issues. And that communicates even way louder than the words itself. Just like the movies were in the late 70s and 60s. You realize there were no sound, but for some reason you got to understand it more than when the sounds came. And so that's how sometimes you want to relate to certain people. Just try and listen or watch them and pay attention with the sound off.
Yeah, there's an exercise that I think will be very vital to your communication skills. When you add it to your communication, it will really be helpful. And so on the other side, while you are paying attention to your partner, looking at your partner with the sound off, know that whatever you do consciously or unconsciously, whether you speak or not, your partner is also looking at you the same way, whether you understand what you are doing or not. Your partner is receiving a couple information that you may not want to send. So make sure you are also mindful that whatever you are not even saying is being delivered in the way that you intend.
Yeah, I think it's only right that I inserted this statistics or this insight that I learned from Tony Robbins. And I think it's important you guys know. And he was trying to say that 95% of the time, we are unconscious of our actions. 95% of the time, we are not conscious of what is happening to us. So we are only conscious only 5% of the time. And he gave a perfect example that if you were driving, and for the first time you started driving, you realize driving is very, very difficult. It's a very difficult skill to master. And when you start driving, you realize you're always super attentive on the road because you don't want to cause any accident. But after a couple of years, if not months, you realize driving becomes a very easy thing to do. So much that you can even pay attention to a friend sitting on the front seat and not be aware of the things that are happening right in front of you. And two questions can be asked right there. When you are lost in thoughts or you are lost in the conversation with another person, who is in control of driving the car? Because if you were to be asked that, what did you see on the road, you may probably not remember, and will remember exactly what was the conversation we're having with the other person. And so he was trying to put that across by saying that most of the time, the same things we are doing, we are not so very much aware. So when someone raises an idea or a thought about you that you are this way or that way, you may probably want to listen to that.
Wow, that cannot be said any better. And so please, whatever you are doing, make sure that you've consciously put yourself in a state that everything you are doing is communicating to the way that you want. That will move us to our second point, which is avoid always being right.
You probably find this kind of weird, but if you've ever been in my situation, which I've experienced myself, is that you really don't want to be the right person all the time. You always want to be right. You don't want to be the smart person in the relationship all the time. What that does is it makes the other person feel a little bit inferior. You would think that being smart will help the relationship, only that if it's too consistent, if you are only the one that comes up with the brightest idea, comes up with the best solutions, you appear certain way most people don't like.
I don't really know how you feel about this point, but if you've been in a relationship where the partner is almost always being right, what do you feel? Ideally, you feel like you are dumb, which may not be the case, but at least you are dumber than the partner. And so which really brings some sort of discomfort in the relationship. That's the word I was looking for, discomfort. The good thing about relationships is that you are being heard. But if you feel like this point you are even coming across will be there will be a better one in the future that your partner will bring. You feel that you don't really feel the comfort that you are supposed to feel as far as communication in a relationship is concerned.
I think me and Jay witnessed this firsthand with our grandparents. Our grandfather was one of the smartest person you ever come across. Unfortunately, my grandmother didn't go to school, and so she lacked in a certain angle. And so anytime my grandfather would come up with brilliant ideas or recall certain memories he had in school, or just generally being the brightest, I realized that our grandmother will feel a certain way, will feel not as smart, right? I realized it made her furious, it made her angry, and she wasn't comfortable trying to
brainstorm on new ideas with my grandfather. So we realized that if you want to run away from this point, you have to do the opposite. You have to try and always highlight the little good things that your partner says. Sometimes no one is ever too dumb. Even a mad person can give you an advice. And so what you have to take notice of that the little good piece that you see from your partner, that wow, this is brilliant, make it a big deal. Talk about it almost all the time.
I like that. And there's another thing you can do, which is you can work your partner into thinking they are the ones that are coming up with such an idea.
Wow.
So instead of being quick to say, this is the new idea, let's do this, and she'll be like, okay, yeah, it's the smartest one. You can be like, hey, just work the person into it slowly and make them feel that they came up with the idea themselves. That is one way to communicate effectively with your partner.
Wow. The whole idea is to always make your partner happy, which is not always the case in a relationship. That's if you've been in a relationship, you get it. And so if two of you come up with ideas all the time, you realize that automatically you become more compatible than you used to be. Try the action that Jeffrey said. Whenever you guys are in communicating, lure the person into thinking that he or she is the one bringing the best ideas, so that you can be on a common ground at least for once.
Also, if you are the one that is always the smartest, sometimes, especially when your partner raised something wrong in something that you do and is valid, accept it wholeheartedly and be like, I'm surprised you were able to identify the mistake I was doing and highlight it as well. Let the person feel that when you do something wrong and they're able to identify the mistake, you accept it, and so you make them feel that at least they are able to correct you on something.
Wow. This point in particular, if you don't know the magnitude of this point, it means you're a victim. Only someone who knows how to navigate this question mark in particular is the one that really understands what we are talking about, because you want to be on the end where your partner also feels cherished, feels appreciated, feels that at least he or she gets sense. And so what Jeffrey is saying ideally is the right thing that you want to be doing.
And so today, when we're prepping to get this YouTube video done, we decided to ask a married person we know and cherish very much, who has a very blossom marriage. We decided to ask them about how effectively you can communicate with your partner. And he was like, to communicate effectively with your partner, or to communicate with your partner in general, you want to be mindful of the interest of your partner as well.
Wow.
You shouldn't be centered on yourself. And so on the third point is know your partner's interest. And so anytime you're trying to engage your partner in conversation and it's always self-centered about something you like to do almost all the time, be particular about that, since your partner may not be as interested.
Yes, I mean, can you imagine talking about something completely strange to your partner? Something you know that there are some things you find very interesting, but the same cannot be said with your partner. Let's say generally a boy talking about football with his girlfriend or his wife, the congeniality will not really be there, as opposed to talking about wigs or hair. And so whenever you want to spice up a communication, you want to make sure that communication is really in the good frequency. What you want to be doing is find the interest of your partner and communicate head on.
Jay, what do you think about this as well? Don't you think that even though your partner may not be as interested, why shouldn't they want to compromise just to make you happy as well?
Wow, that is also a very good thing to bring up. What I can say is that right now we are talking about you working on yourself, and so make sure that you are talking about something that is interesting about you. That is what you can do to help. In the case of your partner also being attentive to you, and direct your partner to watch this video, and that will be helpful to them as well. With that being said, if you are on the receiving end on listening to an uninteresting thing from your partner, do what to compromise, because you are the one we are.
And so generally, communication with your partner is one of the most important things, because that is how you generally know exactly how your partner is feeling all the time. And so if you get it wrongly, could mess up with your relationship. And so you may want to really pay attention to these 3 points we feel that will be very helpful when it comes to communication with your partner. Pay attention, listen or watch with the sound off, right? And don't always appear the smartest one in the room when it comes to you and your partner. Also, you want to be engaging in conversations that are interesting to your partner and not just you as well.
Yes, and so the take home, know that you are communicating even when you are not talking. That one is very important. What do you do when your partner is not really looking at you? What do you do when you are not talking? All these are communications that you want to really make sure that you are sending the intended message across.
And so we thank you for really joining and listening all through to this stage. We really will appreciate some feedback from you guys. Leave us a comment. Let us know how you feel about our YouTube videos. Let us know about certain videos you want us to be making and what topics you want us to talk about, especially if you have a certain problem in your relationship. Be curious about what you would think about certain things you may be feeling in your relationship. You feel like you may have certain ideas that can help.
Share to your family and friends and subscribe if you want. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.